10 years ago, the world shook as Paizo's Pathfinder role-playing game was unleashed on the world and caused a cataclysm in the gaming industry. Millions partook in countless adventures. No foe was insurmountable, no challenge too daunting. The victories were overwhelming and too many to count. All was good in the land of Golarion. However, as with all things, what was once new becomes old and tastes change. The people of Pathfinder became restless and lazy in their triumphs. They were striving for a new challenge, a new task to rekindle that spark of adventure. But behold, the dawn has awoken, and Pathfinder version 2 is on the horizon of being unleashed onto the world. But before that glorious day, the forces of Paizo have called the Roll for Combat team to partake in their greatest adventure to date, the Pathfinder Playtest.
Hey there, welcome to Roll for Combat. I'm your GM and host, Stephen Glicker. And in this week's special episode, we are giving a full review of the Pathfinder Playtest. We all managed to get the rule books early. We managed to read the rules several times for most of us. We made some characters, played a few sessions, and now we're sitting down and giving you our thoughts on what we think of the game. For those of you who are new, we actually have a weekly podcast where we go through and play the Dead Sun's Adventure Path, which is Starfinder, not Pathfinder. However, before Starfinder, we used to play every single adventure path we can get our hands on, and we have hundreds upon hundreds of sessions of Pathfinder under our belt. And before that, we have about 30 years of D&D experience under our belt as well. So, we are fantasy gamers at heart. Although we do like Starfinder, we all have a soft spot for fantasy and Pathfinder and couldn't wait to jump in and try Pathfinder Playtest. So this is a 1-hour review of us just sitting around and talking about what we think of, well, various aspects of the game. We got to play it a few times, both at PaizoCon and privately. We had time to read the rules in detail and obviously make some new characters. Now, this is a review of the low-level play. We only played level 1 characters, and what we're going to do is probably play some higher-level characters in the near future and do a follow-up review after we have a few more sessions under our belt. In addition to us talking about it, you can read Jason McDonald's extensive review of the rules on the Roll for Combat website. And finally, if you want to talk to us and just chat about the game, or if you want to play on the Pathfinder playtest itself, we have several games starting on our Discord channel, which is discord.rollforcombat.com. We have tons of GMs and a lot of people want to play, so sign up now. We're doing both play-by-post as well as live play, and it's going to be a great place for you just to talk about the game, play some games, exchange information, anything Pathfinder related. And of course, we do a lot of Starfinder there too as well. But with that, let's jump right into review and talk about the new Pathfinder playtest and what we all thought about it. So this is Steve from Roll for Combat, and today we are going to talk about the Pathfinder playtest and what we at Roll for Combat think of it. We have read the rules, we've made characters, we've played it at PaizoCon, and we just played a little bit of Pathfinder Society playtest scenario. Was it Rose Street Revenge? We had a little bit of combat, a little diplomacy, we tried it all out. We have been playing Pathfinder since the inception. Most of us have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games under our belts. So we know Pathfinder very well. We've obviously been playing a lot of Starfinder last year. So for us, this is going back to the well. And in general, in any order, what do you guys think of anything? We'll kind of start disorganized of what you guys think so far. Just the rules or what you think of playing or what you liked, what you didn't like. Let's just start off and go from there.
I'm happy to start because I actually may have the fewest things to say. So it's, for the most part, actually reading through the rules and everything else, I focused on the wizard character and just creating a level 1 character at all. I absolutely love the sort of action system. I think it's fabulous to actually have multiple things for any character to do, which is always a balancing act with any game of while I'm doing my turn, other people don't have anything to do, but yet I want to be able to enjoy and have activities on my turn. So just simply bumping it up from 2 to 3 seems a nice balance for individual enjoyment without, interfering with other people's play enjoyment. My one quibble that I saw is that the specializations for a wizard at level 1 are extremely limited, which I only assume they're just not done writing it because at the moment the only advantage of I specialize in evocation or in necromancy or any other is to get one additional first level spell. And that's pretty much it. And you're done. That's the only advantage. Whereas if you go universalist and don't choose anything, you actually get an additional class feat, which of course will always be useful at 5th, at 9th, and 12th levels, having an additional feat. Whereas having a first level spell will eventually become useless, of course, as you level. So I'm assuming they're eventually going to make it more like archetypes from Pathfinder, where you get a spell at 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, but they haven't yet done that. So at the moment, I could not see any logical reason beyond role playing to pick anything else than Universalist from a mechanical perspective as a wizard.
And by the way, that was Bob Marquis. I don't know if you want to quickly say your names when you first start talking so everyone knows who's who.
Hi, this is Bob Marquis.
There we go, Bob Marquis.
This is Jason. I want to jump in on the action system because one thing, when you go in hearing, oh, everything's an action, you get 3 actions. That sounds too simple at first. That sounds like stupid, but it actually, so far, it feels like it actually works pretty well. Because in some places it kind of kludges out that it ends up being like Pathfinder anyways. Because like most spells come out to two actions anyways. So 2 actions to cast a spell, 1 action to move, and you're back where you were with original Pathfinder anyways. But I mean, it's still. They move the granularity to the other side of the equation so that everything's an action, but now the tools that you have sometimes can do different things depending on how many actions you put into them. Like the Cleric channel, I played the Cleric at PaizoCon, and it's like 1 action is a touch heal, 2 actions is a ranged single target, 3 actions is a channel. Magic missile is another one. You get an extra missile if you pump an extra action into it. So there's still room for flexibility and still room for choices, and in fact, maybe more interesting choices because there's still you have the ability to make decisions like that. So it ends up actually being fairly useful.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it right there. I mean, I had the option of running. When I did my channel heal, which was 3 actions long, and what's great about it is that they're, instead of a check mark, you can put just V for verbal, somatic for somatic, and M for material in the little boxes. So you can picture what's going on a little bit better. But I had the option when I was channeling to actually run for one option, for 1 action, hit that guy with a sword, and do a touch heal as my 3rd action, or any combination thereof. But I chose to just show what a 3 action heal was. So that was kind of cool. I like that flexibility.
I mean, yeah, in general, the nice thing about having 3 actions is that, well, you can do 3 things and everything's an action. Like the old rules of, I mean, how many times have we had to look up, oh, is that a move action? Is that a standard? Is that a fall? And then you had to constantly remember it. And now everything was like, the combat went insanely fast. I mean, yeah, it's first level, but it was like, that was an action. That's 2, 3, done. 1, 2, 3, done.
No more. Hold on. Is that a swift or a full or a move or
combat was so fast.
Stuff.
Yeah, it went so much faster. That was even though yes, we played a trillion times, but that went crazy fast because I the only thing I had to look up was there are some little wonkiness, like a ready action. Like as we found out, a ready action it's 2 actions, but then you get 1 action when it goes off. So yeah, it's not totally like, oh, everything's an action, everything's like there's still a little bit you're gonna have to remember, so it's not 100% perfect, but it went from incredibly complex to almost very simple, I would say.
And I do think it's welcoming to new players, which, from our perspective as lifers, we've been doing this for years. We'll figure it out. But I think that sort of system is a lot easier for someone coming in new to wrap their brain around than having to learn 7 different types of actions.
And when you say that it's more simple, the elegant thing about that is that the simplicity is actually more flexible than the old system, which is great. Where it's simpler, but it gives you more options and more interesting combinations. I would have never had those options playing any other system, that I've played before, to run, heal, and attack in one turn. So
Yeah, and they've actually said this publicly. Paizo has said that this game is, there is role playing, there's skills, but they are a combat oriented game system. Like, as the exact quote I think was, like, half the book is combat. I mean, they did most of the book is how to do combat, how combat works. Here's things for combat. Here's tools for combat. Not that role playing isn't part of it, but combat and tactics is a huge part of the Pathfinder system, which I really like that they managed to do the holy grail of simplifying and yet making it way more complex. It's just by having spells do different things with different amounts of actions, your attacks doing different things with different amounts of actions. It will give you a lot more options, even at first level. And I can only imagine as you level up, you'll have a whole variety of things you can do. Even if you're a fighter or a monk, or you're not a spellcaster, you'll have all these special powers and abilities. So you'll always have something to do. And you always have to think about, okay, I got 3 actions. What am I going to spend them on? And it's looks like it's going to be really good. I'm very curious to see what this is like when we play the higher level characters.
Well, a great example of that is the use of shields. I mean, a shield used to just be an abstract modifier, just a modifier to your armor class. Your tin can gets a little bit stronger because you have a shield. Now it's like an active defense system. You choose whether to raise your shield. And if you do raise your shield, you still get that plus, but then you also have the option to actually block the attack and not get hit by it at all and have the shield take the hit. And that's one of your 3 actions. And there was one of those rounds in the fight where I was like, do I move, attack, and raise the shield? Do I move twice and attack? I mean, what I want to do, it adds choice. It's something simple, but that gives you real choices and gives you some tactical thinking that you didn't have before. And that's, I mean, there are probably going to be a few times where you're going to sit there grumbling because you forgot to raise your shield and start swearing under your breath. But for the one time that happens, you're probably going to get 5 or 10 times where it actually provides you with a really interesting dynamic.
And when your shield is raised, I don't think you have to raise it the next turn unless you use one of those shield actions, correct?
I think
No, I think you have to re-raise it.
Initially, you have to raise it, but you can get feats and stuff that turn it into a reaction where you can actually do it at the moment that the attack happens.
So, I mean, yeah, you do have to. It does cost an action. Shields start off fairly not weak, but they do consume part of the action economy. But if you're really dedicated to being a shield fighter, as Jason said, you can get feats and abilities to make it reactive. So you just always use it, and you become really good at it.
Now, having said that, at PaizoCon, we had that little kind of 3 beers in discussion about shields breaking, and is the fighter going to have to drag a wagon full of shields through the dungeon with him because he needs spare shields? So there might be a little bit of a, because there might be a little bit of a logistics question around that, but we'll figure that out as we go.
Bob was going to say something.
I'm also actually going to be very intrigued how the shield spell ends up working with this. I took it for the wizard, but of course it didn't come up in the first encounter we played. It's only a +1 to AC as a spell, which makes me wonder, with all the different shield actions, how much utility is it really going to happen in live play for a wizard to defend itself? is there ever going to be a situation where my taking and raising that shield, where I've cast a spell and raised it, is going to be more valuable for +1 AC to just simply running the hell away?
Yeah.
Or casting a spell to attack, or casting a spell to make myself invisible, or almost any other offensive or defensive action.
But does that shield stay up for any length of time?
No, that's why I was asking
Concentration.
about a turn.
You use one of your actions per turn to maintain it as a concentration, as is.
And I believe you have to use another action to raise it.
To use it, to raise it. Yes, exactly. So casting the spell and then raising it, and then one action every single round afterwards to maintain it. And still, the thing is, the utility is only +1 AC. In original Pathfinder, I will say the advantage of the shield spell is that it gave you +4 AC to your completely armorless wizard.
Well, but Bob, it also has hardness, though. And the hardness scales up as you level. So, I mean...
That's great. No, that's good. I'm actually not saying it's useless. I'm saying as written, I'm curious to see what the actual utility will be in live play for a first or third or fifth.
Well, I believe the shield takes the damage for you. So if you do get hit, it goes to the shield first, then goes.
That's
to
great. I want to actually use it in playing. But my question is still going to be: is it better than the other option a wizard ever has?
True. Well, this is the playtest, and don't forget, this is one of the things. Hopefully, they will find out. Like if it's not powerful enough or too OP, then they change it because this is obviously what they're going to be getting information about. So, Chris, you've been so quiet. This is the quietest Chris has ever been.
Well, no, I'm just I'm liking everything I'm hearing. I do like the action system now. I do like that the attacks of opportunity are more or less gone, because that was a big. We were talking about that before. That's a big thing that slows combat down, is because you're constantly trying to avoid putting yourself in a situation where you're going to receive attacks of opportunity. I mean, that's a big time sink, and going both ways, because the enemies are constantly trying to do that as well, all the withdrawing and whatnot. If no one has it, for the most part, then that makes the playing field equal, and it speeds things up, which I do like. We'll have to see if it looks like Fighter and Paladin can get it. We'll have to see if that is OP or not, because it might be, but it also will. The Fighter, the Paladin, pure melee type fighters do seem, they should have an advantage in melee. Like, they should be better than most people, and you should not want to go toe to toe with them. Other things, though, just clarification things. Like for my class, for Monk, one thing that was not so intuitive, under each of the classes, it does say things like it has the field for proficiencies, but then it has nothing underneath it. So it's kind of confusing as to what they mean by that. It says proficiencies and then it's just blank. It looks like there's something supposed to go under that, because all the other things on the right, it says if you're looking at wizard key ability intelligence, hit point 6, proficiencies, there's nothing underneath that. So I don't know, what that means. And, one thing for me it was not clear is I took this feat of monastic weapons, which from reading it, it looks like you have to take that feat to be able to be proficient in any of the monk weapons. But then when you go to the weapons section and look under monk, it sort of seems like you could use them without that, but it's kind of unclear. That needs some clarification as to, do you have to take that feat to be able to use any weapons at all? Because it seems like you're not proficient with anything other than unarmed strike.
You are. That's correct. And actually, I'm looking at the layout. You know why they did this? The proficiencies is the header, and then the subheads are perceptions, saving throws, skills, weapons, armor, and spells. Because if you look, key ability, hit points, proficiencies.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 69, but any of the actual, this is a layout item. If you notice, proficiencies was the header because it's in all caps, and then perception.
Right. Okay.
It's just the way the layout is. But I see what you're saying. Like exactly. Like the layout and the writing in general, I thought was fantastic, because they really wrote this in a way that explains, like, if you don't know how a game works, this is how the game works. This is how role playing works. It was very well written for both newbies as well as people who have been doing this their whole lives.
Yeah, they should have done is they should have indented everything. Like, I see what you're saying now.
Like the layout skills, weapons, is beautiful,
armor.
but obviously this is things they'll fine tune. quite a bit. But they did do smart things like put all the class abilities with the class and the ancestry abilities with the ancestries. Like in the other rules, you had to cross-reference everything, and they actually even said that in some of the interviews I've heard with them. And they've done a better job in general organization. I found obviously, it's impossible to get everything done correctly, which is why I really need the online SRD because that's where I just search for things. I search in the PDF and I search online. So as long as it's online, I'll be pretty happy. But in general, it's I put it this way. For the first time we ever played it, you guys sent me your characters. I was able to quickly jump to the chapter, read it, figure out your characters, figure out how they were built, go through them, and within less than an hour, I was able to build characters and make sure your characters were built correctly. And that's pretty, it was a lot easier than some other systems I've used. So that in my opinion is something
Probably
positive.
Probably all other systems that you've used,
more or less all other systems. I mean, there was still some things I had to get used to because there are these new concepts like the whole training system like that. I'm sure some other role-playing games use it, and I'm sure people will say, "Oh yeah, it's these 5 do," but I can't think. I don't know of any that really use
that
that
was
type
new
of
to me,
system.
I gotta be honest.
Yeah, that's well, because everything. So the way it works is that everything, your reflex saves, your skills, your attacks, everything goes up with your level. Whatever your level is, that's your base. And there's no remember there was like half attacks and quarter attacks and 3/4, that's all gone. It's like everyone's like, oh, what's your base attack bonus? What level are you? 15? 15. It's like, what's your base skill your base save? What level are you? 15. 15. What's your base skill? 15. Like everything is your level. And then based on whether you're trained at it, there's pluses and minuses. And there's not a lot. Like even being legendary, which is the highest you can be, is just a +3. So the math is crazy, crazy tight now. Like a +3 is like a +10 in the old system. So every little plus really helps and counts.
For me, the biggest difference in the system, and it's kind of stupid, but it felt a lot different, is actually having a lot more hit points. My cleric has 17 hit points at first level, and it feels immediately so much better to have that. You can have a lot more incremental damage without totally being on the edge of going unconscious and falling out of combat and feeling just like a loser. That I think is just fantastic. So
Heck,
that,
you were critted. I think the very first hit was a crit on you.
Yeah.
Which wasn't a natural 20. It was just a 19, but it was 10 more than your AC, which is obviously another big thing, and critted you for double damage, and you were fine. I mean, yeah, it did about half your hit points, but you were still okay, and then you just healed it right back in one turn. You actually healed the whole party in one turn. So
Right.
there you go.
And it just felt better. Like even outside of combat, walking through the streets, there wasn't the fear that, an arrow could come from out of the blue and just wipe out my character, and I'd have to make something else. And just that type of security, I just felt better about my character.
Oh, that didn't happen to anyone, right, Bob? Where an arrow just came out of nowhere, hit you, and
No,
dropped
no,
you
absolutely no.
in the
Yeah.
very first 5 minutes of the campaign, Bob.
Yeah, so it was very fun, I thought.
It was fun. It was fun for me. It was an arrow that hit you and dropped you, and you guys didn't even enter the dungeon yet. So yeah, that is probably nice.
Yeah, I mean, if just at first glance, I mean, it does seem like my character at first level has 21 hit points, and that is you feel more powerful at a low level, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, and also as a GM, I feel like it's like, oh, I hit you for 2 points of damage, and that could be half your hit points. Like, I feel like, oh, I can hit you for 8, and it won't kill you outright, but you'll feel it.
Yeah,
At level 1.
it just feels better. It honestly, and it's not like, I mean, the difference between level 1 and level 2 is it's a fifth, it's 100% change in your stats, and now it's not that big of a jump.
Well, the
But
numbers are they did that from the numbers were crazy. I mean, the numbers were just too big. The stat squish, which appears to be happening in everything we see stat squish. They did it in Starfinder, and it seems even more pronounced in Pathfinder. It's much more linear, so supposedly the numbers work just as well at level 20 that they do at level 1, because before it was sort of a progressive scale where as you went up, it would get stronger and stronger to the point that you were just so OP at like level 15. It was kind of ridiculous, but supposedly that you'll be stronger at the higher levels, but it's not going to be OP stronger. And because of the new system, you have to dedicate powers, you have to dedicate training to get to legendary status if you really want to get good. You can't just, you'll automatically get better, but you're not going to get any pluses unless you go out and get some magic items or train specifically. And even then, the plus is a whopping +3. So it's good.
what did you guys think of the feats? We had ancestry feats, class feats. Actually, no, we didn't. We get class feats at level 2. I was
Well,
able to
some
get
of us
one at
got
level 1.
I got a class feat at level
Yeah.
1.
Okay, so my
I
feat.
got 2.
Did you get a class feat, Jason? Did you take a class feat?
I believe, yeah, I did. I got a feat that turned my lay on hands dice from D4s to D6s.
Oh, okay. Okay, because I didn't get a class feat. I think I get one at level 2. I traded there's an ancestry feat that lets you take a class feat. I didn't like any of my ancestry feats. All the class feats looked so great that I can't imagine anybody playing, at least a cleric, going with
I have to agree. I found the ancestry feats for human were not very interesting at any rate.
Yeah.
I liked mine as half orc because one of them gave me low light vision, the other one gave me toughness, which gave me more hit points.
That's pretty good.
Well,
Yeah,
I
it's
love
great.
that. Now the ancestry feats, like half elf and half orc, are feats. So it's not a different ancestry. It's like you're human, and then you can either take clever imposter or general training or half orc, and then you get all these bonuses, and it eats up one of your feats. But it feels, I don't know, it feels more natural, and also allows the game to add like these types of class feats, or sorry, ancestry feats, a lot easier to the game. You don't have to add an entire ancestry of half orc or half elf, or half goblin or half gnome. They could just add it to an ancestry feat, and voila, it's added to the game. It's cool. That was one of the very first things I saw, because I was like, oh, where's the half elf? Because we do play a lot of half elves, because half elves are traditionally one of the best ancestries to play because they're so powerful. And I noticed, it's not even here. It's part of human. That was very cool.
But I would also say that the class feats that I found were much, much better than the general feats, because they're also general feats. But again, I'm playing a cleric. I don't know if that's the same for all classes. So
It seems a little bit like maybe one of the goals was to try to avoid min-maxing a little bit by making the various feats different paths and almost forcing you to use some of the ones you wouldn't use because it's easy to see the character where you pretty much, when everything was just in a bucket called feats, probably a lot of people built the same basic character with the same basic feats optimized for combat. And yeah, there were some racial / ancestry stuff. There were some skill stuff, but by and large, people probably didn't take them very often unless they had some really specialized character concept in their head. And I suppose putting them on different tracks kind of soft forces people to use different things and build more dynamic different characters that way, I guess.
yeah, well, the counterpoint to that is as a human, I have a feat called Natural Ambition that allows me to take a class feat instead.
Well, that seemed like the benefit of humans is a lot of their feats were built around flexibility and switching those feats around to other things.
Well, I mean, yeah, but the human feats were the ancestry feats were just so untakeable. They were your class feats are going to be so much better. And I believe there was general feats that allow you to take a class feat, or I don't know. There was some
Yeah,
there's
well, there's
some crossover,
multi-classing.
but
There is multi-classing.
the
so.
interesting thing is that the feats are they're level. There you have level 1 feats, level 7 feats,
Yeah.
level 14 feats, I think. But
They had
yeah,
it in Pathfinder 1, but everything's a lot clearer. Like that's the one thing you'll notice is that, and I mean, I can talk an hour about the system, I think, and probably John can too. It's like I very much was focused on the game system and the architecture and the framework. And they spent a lot of time on the framework, you can see, but it's very clear. And you guys don't even see this, but like the traps now have levels, like everything has levels, so you can clearly very easily assign them to, up against characters. And even, and this is a big thing that people are talking about, the equipment has levels, which, if you've been playing Starfinder, you're getting kind of used to that. But having levels with equipment is a big deal because it affects crafting, as well as now you have a general idea of when you should be getting these things and what should be around, quote, your level. It's I do like how levels have been crept into every aspect of the game because it makes balancing and building really easy, for at least for the GM point of view.
Let me ask a question now. In terms of proficiency levels, legendary is what? Is your level plus 4?
3 plus
Plus
3.
3.
Yeah.
So one thing I'm a little wondering about, or maybe concerned. I mean, I'm just focusing on monk because that's what I've been looking at the most. But I'm a little wondering about scaling because monk has no armor at all, so they have to rely on dexterity and their what they call graceful, which is unarmed, or unarmored proficiency. So at level 17, your unarmed defense proficiency becomes legendary. So that means that my armor class right now is 14. It's going to be 17 at level 17. That seems way low. I mean, it does not seem like that scales properly because there's I'm guessing minimal amounts of way to increase your armor class when you're wearing no armor or shield.
There's probably, I haven't looked that much at the magic items. I presume there are magic items that just like, what were they, the bracelets for the monks, that there has to be something
Ring of
similar.
protection, maybe.
Yeah. There's got to be something that both wizards as well as monks have to be able to wear, because for the monk, at least your armor class goes up. What about the wizard? The wizard doesn't get anything. Their armor
Right,
class
but the
is bad forever.
wizard is. But see, the monk is a frontline fighter, and a melee fighter.
Not when you play him. Oh,
No, they're up there in melee. I mean, to have a 17 armor class at level 17 seems very weak. But I could be wrong. I mean, maybe there's.
Yeah.
I mean,
know the math is super tight now. I have not seen stats on the monsters yet that are high level. I unfortunately only have level like 1, 2, and 3 monsters at my disposal right now. So I would I want to see like a level 20 monster.
And that's actually
Yeah.
an interesting question as to scaling. They may actually be going with a very, very marginal scaling system instead of the sharp one that was done in Pathfinder, where a level 7 character could slaughter first level characters by the hundreds. But I mean, obviously, D&D 5th edition tried to go with there's not that much difference between 3rd and 6th level. I mean, you're stronger, but you're not way stronger.
Well, here, I'll give you some general numbers. So I'm looking at table 10-2, which is the skill DCs by level and difficulty. So a trivial skill DC at level 1 is a 10, which makes sense. So level 1 is 10 DC. Level 10, the DC is 19. So it only went up 9 points for 10 levels.
Right, that's interesting.
Level 20 is 29. So in theory, the lowest DC, this is trivia, by the way. They're talking about the lowest DCs possible. It goes anywhere from a 10 to a 29. And it can go higher. Like if you do a low DC, it goes up to 38, 41, 44, 47. Like it can get pretty high. But in general, those numbers are pretty low. Like a 29 at level 20, that's probably one of the lowest levels, numbers I've ever seen for a level 20 anything. So the numbers, I believe, are very small, very tight. So I guess we'll find out.
We'll see, because I mean, level 29. Okay, so my athletic skill right now is 5 because I'm trained and I have +4 strength. but how is it going to go up that much? I mean, you can spend your skill increases to get it up to legendary, so then it'll be at a very high level. It'll be 8, and then if I increase my strength, which gets harder to do, it's diminishing returns after you hit 18. You
don't get any monk advancement. Doesn't get any abilities that give you.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone when they
stuff.
advance in levels, you can instead of getting you can either get a skill trained or you can actually go up from trained to expert. And what that does is give you +1.
But for skills, you're also getting +1 for your level every time.
I was about to
that's
say,
true. That's true.
You actually, we totally just, I opened up the sheet. You get your level.
Right. That's true. I forgot about that.
You get
that's
20 at your AC.
Right. Oh, wait.
Plus,
yes. Okay.
So your AC is 10 plus your dex plus your level plus your proficiency. So
I keep forgetting about that. That's right. It's
23.
Counterintuitive.
So
that's right.
You would have right. So it's not a 19. It's a 39. So there you go.
Okay. So you're right. Yeah, that's I'm so not used to the level being added in, and that also goes for your to hit as well.
Yes, that's what I said. Like your level is just added to everything. So it's a very linear scale. It's like your levels, because your level's added to every single thing. Your AC is, which is also nice, because how many times when your AC, you would be at those levels like, oh, my AC doesn't go up this level because I'm like 3/4 or half, which stinks. But your AC goes up every level. Every level your AC goes up. Every level your saving throw goes up. Every level your skills go up in your attacks. Every single level, everything goes up, which is going to be nice, because how many times do you have that one crappy level? I forgot which ones it was, but which everyone knows those. Like the one level where you get nothing, and you're like, ugh, this is like a waste level. You don't get anything. You get like one ability, and that's it. And then you get the one level where you get tons of cool things. So you always get something, which is nice. You always feel like you're getting stronger.
We'll definitely have to play test it at higher levels to see how this all shakes out, because it does seem odd though in a way, because like as a wizard, what weapon are you trained in? Are you trained in any weapons?
It's the same as Pathfinder 1. It's the exact same, like dagger.
Okay, so dagger, staff, crossbow.
Sling, yeah, crossbow, all those things.
Because a level 10 wizard with a dagger is almost as good in ability to hit, excluding strength, as a fighter, right? Because I mean, there's no more of this like 2/3 base attack bonus thing. It's all everyone's a full.
They do get bonus though. They will get certain bonuses and abilities that no one else will get.
Well, yeah, they will. I'm just saying on just the raw numbers to hit.
Yes.
They get a slight bonus because they're an expert instead of a trained.
So but they don't. By that time, their feats are going to leave wizards in the dust as far as their feats and stuff. I would imagine by level 10. I mean, it's going to be.
But in the old days, it used to be like a wizard would trail way behind because they were like a 1/3 base attack bonus class.
Yeah.
That's all gone. That's all gone.
That's all.
But I think John's right. I think they're relying on feats to really make the differences stand out.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and they're going to have strength bonus. Wizard.
Yeah, they're going to have things that aren't going to be available unless you're trained as master in the weapon that you're using.
Right, that's true too.
And so the wizard won't be able to do the thing that the fighter will be able to do and get an extra 6 dice of damage or whatever.
All right, so we talked a lot about fighting. What about wizards and spells and clerics and spells? You guys saw the spells and read the spells. What did you guys think of them?
Well, initially, we talked about it a little bit during the game portion. I love what they did with the cantrips. I love the concept that like they brought in the notion of like the at-will powers that like mages would always like caster classes would always have something they can throw into a fight. Because I mean, both at the low levels and the high levels, like you get into that situation where low levels you don't even have that many spells you can cast. High levels you start running out of spells, and the casters don't have anything they can do. But by making the cantrips a little more powerful, and then B, more importantly, that they scale up as you level, I mean, that gives your caster something that they can do at any point in the fight, and so that you never have to feel like you're a third wheel. Unless the monster happens to be resistant to the one type of damage you can do, I suppose. I suppose that could happen. And I thought that's just fantastic.
I was actually most excited about Shield, believe it or not. I didn't understand how it worked. I thought that it lasted longer than a round. It costing 2 actions seems a little excessive, but I do not know how the hardness like scales up. I haven't really looked at it at a higher level, so
My apologies. I actually did state that wrong. There's only one action to cast it. It's only a verbal casting. It's the second action is if you want to raise it.
yeah. Well, I mean, raising it gives you the bonus. You can cast it, but I don't think you get the bonus until you raise it. So those are the 2 actions.
Well, you still get +1 to your AC, I believe. Oh, actually, maybe not. I'm
No,
not sure.
no.
Nope,
Well, the
actually,
way
looking at it,
I'm
you're right.
reading it,
Yeah.
yeah, it requires raise shield is what gives you, unless it's a second +1 bonus, which I don't know. I mean, it
Yeah,
seems
you basically have it's. I'm looking right now. It's like to cast it is a verbal casting, and you basically get a shield, but when you cast it, it counts as using the raise shield action. So casting it is the equivalent of raising it, which costs an action.
well,
So there is some economy.
really, because at the top of that page on the top column,
I'm looking
there's a
at
raise.
page 255. No, but read the
Yeah, I'm looking at it
description.
now here as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. We're getting
Actually,
into
no,
some
it's
math.
not as bad as I recalled.
Yeah,
This
no,
is
it says.
good.
Oh, okay.
So you
It
don't
says-
need to channel
Oh, then
it.
that's
Yeah.
really cool. Then that's really cool
yeah.
because then I can
Yeah.
cast another spell and have a shield. I love that idea that there's this phantom shield that you just recall and dismiss, as your turns go.
So here's a perfect example, though. It's like, and the good old Pathfinder, as good as it is, and it is simple, it's still little nitty gritty, that we're still going to have to learn stuff. You still, oh, yeah, is that, he's like casting the shield and raising the shield is 2 actions. But in this case, it counts as 1 action, which is 2
It
actions.
counts as 1 action. Yeah,
Right.
wrong.
Like, there's still little
right.
things we're going to have to learn. So it's not.
For that matter, you don't
completely-
channel to hold it. It only lasts 1 action. I had been confused because of the or until dismissed comment. I had assumed that meant a channel, but no, it's not.
Well, if it was too simple, it wouldn't feel like Pathfinder, right? So you got to have a little bit of
certainly.
complexity in there. So,
Steve, what do you think of? I might be too far out in the weeds because we haven't got there yet. But one of your pet peeves with Pathfinder or any system was summoning monsters. It was something that you disallowed. Yeah. What do you think of summoning? I wanted to play a summoner, and I had a summoning class, and he said, no. The monsters they take too long to summon, and they're useless. Did they get it right this time, or is it too early to tell?
it's a little too early to tell, but I will say in general, and I've said this, they were very smart in the rules. They basically, there was 3 pet peeves that I know a lot of people as well as the developers had. The 3 pet peeves were summoning, downtime, and making items. There's more than those, but I know I've had discussions with the developers over the years. The number 1 pet peeve for developers appears to be magic items and magic item stores. I know many people at Paizo and Wizards who actually take them out of their games because they think it's the stupidest idea ever to have a magic store. And that's the whole idea of being an adventurer, is that if you want to get magic items, you need to find them and get them. So, and this might take a little while, but real quick, summoning is way better because it works very similar to how the mechanic works in Starfinder, is that you have to give up. The whole problem with summoning is that, 1, it was a pain in the neck because you had to look up the monsters. They were never as powerful as you wanted them to be. And then they took an entire action. So you get to go, and then the monster gets to go. And you know what? That took up a lot of time. They mostly clogged up the battlefield, especially if you summoned like 3 of them. And then people would be yelling at you as the GM, like, "Oh, why aren't you attacking my monsters? Why aren't you attacking me instead?" And it's like it becomes like a whole problem in many, many ways. The way Summon Monster works now is that you still summon monsters that aren't quite as good. Like a 3rd level summons a level 2 monster, but it takes part of your turn to command and use them. So if you're willing to use up your turn's actions to use the monster, so be it. Now you have less to do. So you don't get a full turn and the monster gets a full turn. So it works. And that's exactly how it works in Starfinder. Jason has been playing basically a pet class the entire time, and I've never had a problem with Cheddar ever. because it feels balanced, and it feels like they just took those rules and added them to summoned creatures. That's like the first pet peeve. We'll talk about the next two next. I don't want to
Yeah,
lock it.
that is good because I summoning is a big problem in normal Pathfinder. It is like I have experimented with that, and there are whole guides written on wizard class and how to min max a wizard, and a lot of it focuses on summoning, and it becomes way too much of a pain. For both the player and the DM, there's all the stat blocks you have to look up. There's such a large variety of different creatures you can summon. They do clog up the battlefield. They slow things way down, and it is ultimately, I think, overpowered. And it is good if they, can rein that in. I mean, it's a fun mechanic, but they need to rein it in. I haven't looked at any of the rules in Pathfinder 2 to see how it works, but
basically, they get 2 actions per turn. So they're just not as powerful. Sometimes you have to command them and use your own actions. It works just like the mechanic. It's very similar in my opinion.
I also don't like the idea of magic stores. I think maybe some very minor low magics could be around in some kind of buying situation, but I always felt they should have a mechanic where you can, sort of like in a MMO, where you can take a magic item, and if you have some kind of crafting skill, magical crafting skill, you can like melt it, you can disenchant it and create something of half value.
Well, guess what? You are in luck because they use the MMO skills or crafting and copied it and put it into Pathfinder version 2.
That's good. That makes much more sense. Like you turn it into something that you can then mold into some other magic item that you want.
Well, what they have is, because items have levels and items have rarity, that if you go to magic item stores, you can only find usually common magic items. Things that are uncommon or rare or legendary, you can't find them.
That's good.
You want to find that uncommon magic item? Guess what? You're an adventurer. Go find it.
Right.
That's how you get it. You don't go to a magic
maybe
store.
Craft it too. You could craft.
Well, crafting is a whole other thing. Well, I'll get into crafting in a second because I love the crafting system. But what do other people think about these magic stores and magic items in general now? I just like the whole concept that, that's uncommon. Well, you're not going to just find it. And if you do, it's rare. And it's officially in the game now.
Well, I actually do. I'm going to disagree. I do like the magic store because I like it increases the value of gold dramatically for players, as long as it's, and I know, but that's gold. That gold that they've earned is hard won. And the fact that you can just have this wish list instead of, and it also dovetails into character customization. If you're a wizard and you want a Pearl of Power of 3rd level, you can get that. I mean, to hope to find the thing that you want to do with your class, it's way too random.
You're never going to find it, but
never going to find it.
But that's why you could craft it. Like if you want it, you should have to craft it, and that costs gold. That does cost gold.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's the money sink that I like.
I mean,
forget what I was saying about stores.
No, you're absolutely right. But I mean,
that's how I feel about crafting. Let's say
one of the problems in min-maxing is part of the min-maxing equation is having the exact magic items that you need and that fit into the min-max. I mean, you should have seen us in Rune Lords, the min-maxing that went on, because the magic items we had were just fit well with the spells I was casting and disabling everything every turn. And that becomes problematic.
I actually have to say, for the record, we broke Pathfinder in that way we played Rise of the Rune Lords. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was, and it was fun. Don't get me wrong, but it became so powerful.
We did honestly one of the hardest campaigns Paizo's ever put out with 2 characters. I mean, it was, and Seth honestly was doubling the DC of some encounters with even though we were only half.
Yeah,
I mean, it became ridiculous.
It was ridiculous, but
I mean, selfishly, you love it as you love the convenience of it, but it is kind of immersion breaking that you go into the local apothecary and it's like, rotted disintegration, you want that in blue, yellow, or green,
right?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yes,
and like from a realistic point of view, it's like, are all these places guarded like Gringotts or something? I mean, these would be prime targets for powerful evil people to go and try and break into and get.
Yeah, why would you raid a dungeon when you could just raid the magic store?
I've heard that 100 times. I've heard this many people are like just either two things: either A, raid a magic store, or two, set up a store in town and sell magic items that you make. It's way easier and less deadly than adventuring. So why even bother? There's no point to adventuring if you can just find or make magic items at will.
Yeah,
that's right. Well,
I mean, but the problem with that is though that you have to make them at what, half value. You can only sell them at half value.
No, you sell them at full value. So you make them
theoretically
at half value.
could. For players, they make it difficult to do that.
Right.
But, the reality is, like, you can only sell it at half the value anyway, so you can't make a profit. But I mean, there's different campaign universes. I think which was the one, Forgotten Realms. They made a whole plot point of the fact that, like, there's a nation of wizards that the entire economy is based on, that they make magic items and sell them all around the entire world in shops. I mean, so yeah, it's been nodded at, it's been leaned at, but for a player, no, that ability is not.
But if you read the rules, and it's actually in the adventures, that they basically say, like, if you want to find, like, you can start off with, like, if you make a level 5 character, they'll say, okay, you start off with a level 2, 3, and 4 item, assuming that you get that through adventuring. So it's not gimped in the way that you can't ever find it if you do make your character a higher level. And then in terms of finding it, that's a GM then. Like, I mean, the GM should be if they're not doing a job and giving you gear that you can use as you adventure, then they're being bad. Like, but that does take out the shop equation in the sense that, okay, I need this very specific magic item. I'm going to go on an adventure to find this magic item, and then the GM should hopefully reward the PC with that magic item so that they can then continue building.
Yeah, well, that would have to be a specific sort of side quest thing where it's like you have to, like, find a.
No, I swap out stuff all the time, even in the adventure paths. If there's because sometimes you'll get something that's, like, good for a barbarian. And I'm like, dude, no, none of you guys can use it, or use, like, maybe if it's a lot, I'll let you sell it and then you can buy something. But I might swap something out instead that you can use, or I actually usually keep it in and then add just something else that I know you'll use. Because there's nothing worse than killing the big bad boss and getting nothing. It's terrible. It's like going to a raid, Chris, and wow, and then you kill the boss and you get no drops.
No drops, and then the loot council says you don't get that.
Worse being a barbarian.
Yeah, exactly.
Playing a class that is kind of off the beaten path and never getting loot
monk,
because you're
monk is never going to get the hand wraps of a mighty fist.
Right. Well, that's a GM point, but the point is that you now, and it's built into the game system, that you cannot expect to go into town and find that rare magic item. It's now
I'm in favor of that. I like that.
Yeah, I am too. And then for the crafting, so how the crafting works, the number one thing they added to crafting is you need a formula. So that alone changes the whole that changes everything. And you can craft items that are higher level than you, which also changes things. So you need to first find a formula, which sometimes you can buy, or you can reverse engineer things. So if you find something really good and everyone wants one of those things, you can then reverse engineer it and then craft it for other people. Or you can go buy a book or find what the formula costs, but you can't just make anything. And that, for a role-playing standpoint, is awesome, because now you hand down magic items over time, or dwarves have their own books, and dwarves have this whole community where they have the best formulas. I mean, it just opens up a lot of possibilities in both a mechanical and role-playing point of view. I think it's good.
Okay, I got a question for you, real quick, you guys. What if you can't find a wand of cure light wounds and you don't have healing in a party?
Yeah, because that's another thing.
That's the thing that lets you guys at level 2 or level 3. You find
wands are
I think that's probably common.
Those are common, and healing is common. So you can always find that sort of stuff.
Okay, all right.
And the healing elixirs are like the minor healing elixirs, dirt cheap. So you can load up on the elixirs.
So on the other hand, the wands gets into the whole thing of resonance points. and
Right.
the fact that
That's-
magic
Oh, that's
items
right. I
have to
forgot
be
about resonance. Okay, you want to talk about resonance?
Yes, because they finally made
So
charisma
awesome.
no longer a dump stat.
Oh
In
my
fact,
gosh.
it's now charisma was always a dump stat. You can't dump it anymore because charisma is
Oh.
how many magic items you can use. So,
Not for
Okay.
sorcerer.
So
It's not a dumb stuff.
well,
Certain
you know what I
classes use
meant.
it.
You
Yeah.
know what I meant. But most
Yeah,
people,
right, of course.
there's
For
no more
everybody
dump-
else, it was always a dump. Yeah,
It's-
I actually went back and forth on if I was
Yes.
going to put something into it at first level.
You're right. So using magic items, so resonance points are based on your charisma, and the amount of points you have depends on how many magic items you can use and activate per day. And so it limits to you how many times you can use magic items and how many you can carry around. So you can't just walk around with 50 magic items anymore. You actually are limited by your character. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
It's basically something you wear costs 1 point, and then every charge, anything that uses a charge uses a point. So the one thing that's good, it strikes me as possibly good and bad, is it cuts down on the whole, I'm just going to have a donkey trailing behind us with 20 cure X wounds wands and just heal up after each fight, because eventually you run out of resonance points and you can't. And you have to get creative and do other things to get around that. On the other hand, it would kind of suck to be able to start not being able to use your magic items in the middle of fights if you start running out of resonance points.
well, it gives you a decision, though.
I'm kind of waiting to see on that one, because it's
Yeah.
got positives and negatives to it.
Did the charges change on the items? I didn't look at a single magic item.
A wand has
I'll admit.
10 charges now instead of 50, which
Okay.
is a big deal.
Yeah.
10 charges is
Oh
a lot less
yeah.
than 50. So that's a big deal right there.
Wow, that's a
But it's
huge
probably
difference.
cheaper, maybe? I don't
It
know.
uses a resonant point every time you use it. So it's not even that it's cheaper. It's like you just can't top yourself off after every fight because you're done, and then you either have to rest for the day or up it again. This goes into it has a nice mechanic, but the GM has to be very smart how they use it. If they allow you to heal and do a full rest after every fight, then what's the point?
Mhm.
But the way we play, you guys know you don't get those, and you have to keep going, and you have to really. I mean, I already make it that you have to balance your abilities. And you go long time between rests, which is on purpose.
How many? The resonance points is equal to your modifier, or
Charisma plus level. So
Plus
it's
level.
like charisma modifier plus level.
gotcha.
Yeah. So as you get more powerful, you can have more magic items. So again, everything scales up, and then so you can, if you're really powerful, you get a lot of magic items, and you can walk around with a lot. So, but at low level, you can't.
It's interesting. There is a limit, though. That is good.
And
What?
weapons and armor go off a separate system. So those, unless they have specific abilities that have to be activated.
Oh, and what do you guys think? So when you get a +1 sword, when you do damage, it's not +1 damage; it's +1 dice.
Oh, really?
I did see
Yes.
that. That was interesting.
Yes.
Oh my god.
So if you have a +1 sword, it's not 1d8 +1; it's 2d8 instead of 1d8
+1.
Well, yeah, in that case, +1.
Yeah.
But you know what I meant. The +1 was So they increased the dice. So plus, like magic items are a big deal now.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And magic armor is also really good now.
Well,
too.
I
It
can't
adds
speak
to,
to
like,
whether
your
or not
saves or
that
something.
feels good or not because
Well, we don't have any magic items.
Yeah.
One quick note on your shield cantrip, by the way. Once you use the blocking feature of it, you can't cast it again for 10 minutes. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did see that. But that
Oh.
makes
Broke,
sense.
yeah.
No, that makes sense to me. I mean, I like that. That's a good thing because
It saves you 4 hit points. It's a hardness of 4.
absolutely. I mean, it's worth
Yeah,
casting.
that's a big
Well,
deal.
right. That's what the hardness is for. So the hardness takes off. So if it does get hit, it's a shield. I mean, it's like bark skin or stuff. Oh, bark skin got totally nerfed, by the way. That's one of the spells that got totally destroyed.
Yeah, it was always a little ridiculous. Oh well.
Yeah, speaking of OP and nerfing, okay, I just got to say, Healing Hands, the class trait for clerics, it's a plus D8 for every time I do a heal, and that applies to, I guess, my channels and my heals. So that basically doesn't quite double my, but it's a huge difference at low levels. And Steve pointed out it doesn't scale, and that's true. But I'll tell you what, that goes. That it seems like it's going, like mathematically, it seems like it's going to go quite a ways for a number of levels, and still it never goes away. It's still 1d8 every single time for the rest of your character's life.
That's good. I like that.
For free. What I'm saying is, I'm looking at that. What I wanted to take was, I wanted a cleric that was going to wield a 1d10 shield. Okay, I wanted a shield, sword. I wanted to roll a d10 for my attack, because I thought that was just so crazy to be that far out there. But this healing hands feat was so good. I had to take it.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
All
that
right.
is way overpowered.
So we only got 5 minutes left, because we can be talking about this for 10 hours. So
yeah,
for 5 minutes, I'm going to do the one last thing that we definitely have to talk about, which is a gigantic add to the game that we saw in action right away. As soon, the very first roll, the very second roll we saw, which is critical success and critical failure. First of all, it applies to everything, spells, skills, everything has it now. And it's
even
not
skill
just
checks. Yeah,
everything. And it's not just rolling a 20 or a 1. If you roll 10 higher or 10 lower, then you critically succeed. And that happened because a monster hit John. He rolled a 19, and with the modifiers, it was 10 more than your AC. So you got critted at a 19. And I liked it. I liked it right away, because I was like, wow, it adds a level of I actually didn't like it at first, because I thought the math is something you're always going to have to keep in your head. It's like, ugh, I always have to think plus minus 10. But in retrospect, it really was actually pretty easy to apply. I mean, obviously, it's like a 10 is an easy number. It's not like, oh, is it 7? So
well, it's again straight from an MMO. WoW monsters have a higher chance of critting you when they're extra levels. I think 3 or 4 high levels higher than you. I do like that. Really don't like critical misses. I don't like them. They take away the option of doing the Hail Mary. It makes you, like, when you have a 50% chance of missing a knowledge check or a skill check or a heal check or an acrobatics check by 10, like, if you need a 20 to get out of that, to catch the cliff by your fingertips, you want to be able to do that. But I don't like have an incentive not to roll, not to try,
that's true,
because
if it's
there's a
not,
critical failure.
if
And
you,
it's just going to happen.
right, if you don't make your Hail Mary, then you're definitely going to be critical failure.
Yeah,
That's
and
true.
so
On a storytelling level, sometimes going for the long shot can lead to some really interesting moments, and this kind of disincentivizes that a little bit.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
On the other hand, I do have to admit, I like the critical success, because
yes, absolutely.
to me, when you hit on a
Absolutely.
32 against an armor class of 14, that's more impressive than rolling on a nat 20 when you're only hitting on a 17.
Totally,
anyways.
totally.
So
that's
that
a fair
actually
point.
that
I like
actually really does make some
Sure.
sense.
And
And
also, I've read so many times where low level characters will attack and farm high level monsters and have all these crazy tactics, and it's going to be gone. I mean, it's like it's like if you're low level, that monster is going to just destroy you. It can roll a 5 and crit you every time. It's like there's just no chance. You're not going to succeed, and you can't even critically succeed. The way the math works is that even if you roll, I think even a 20, you don't succeed. You just succeed. It's like if you can't actually crit them or hit them normally, then you don't succeed. There's a whole section on it how it works.
I understand John's point, though, that like the Hail Mary, look, I need a 20 to hit, but I'm going to just try and attack anyway, is actually an old convention of, well, things are going against me, what the hell. But if I am so bad at attacking that I think there's a 50-50 chance of my missing by 10, there's a chance I could make things worse. And so that disincentivizes me to actually make any attack of any kind.
And frankly, even if you get through that situation alive, you kind of feel, and you decide not to do that Hail Mary, and your comrades, pull you guys through, you kind of feel bad about your character. You kind of feel like, well, what the hell am I doing here? I don't have any actions that, could have saved the day.
Well,
I
John,
just-
maybe you shouldn't have been attacking that level 12 dragon in the first
Well,
place.
Yeah.
I absolutely should have been shooting at that level 12 dragon. That is what being a hero is all about. Why would I play a
Tell that
role-playing
to
game?
Bilbo Baggins.
Yes,
Yes, exactly.
What
He
are
was
you
level
doing?
1 at most.
I know.
Please.
What,
Stealthing
it's
where he
not
had no
even-
business stealthing. What are
you
you
guys
talking
are thinking only combat. Like, I'm thinking like if there's like a trap where there's just a small chance of you.
well, that's actually the trap. I won't even get into this whole other system. The way traps work now, you have to be trained at certain levels to even find and disarm the trap.
Oh no! I mean
Yeah.
like a skill check.
Yeah, like
that is a skill check.
That was Bilbo Baggins
Yeah.
stealthing Smog. He should have critically failed, and Smog would have eaten him.
Yes, yes.
Ring of
You-
power.
Well,
though, no?
actually, and
Right.
with this
He had the
system,
ring,
he
had the
would.
ring, yeah.
Even with the ring, he actually has such a low stealth that, yeah.
All right, so real quick, let's go around. What do you guys think in general? Bob, you go first.
I like it. I'm at a wait and see attitude of actually how it's actually going to scale, because quite a number of the level 1 powers that I'm seeing, or abilities or initial feats, are interesting but not particularly all that exciting. So I assume that there's a scalability thing that's going to happen later, but at the same time, the basic mechanics certainly seem to work wonderfully.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, on Bob's point, like it. I mean, so much has been improved. I think we're going to level 5 with the same characters for the next adventure, but yeah, we'll be able to see how things scale anyway. So yeah, definitely all very forward on a lot of systems here.
Jason, what do you think?
Overall positive. The thing that concerns me a little is the siloing of the different kinds of feats going to make it too tough to build the kind of character you want now that you have 4 different types of feats that all kind of go on their own tracks or whatever. But overall, I like the general feel of combat. I like some of the stuff they're doing with spells. I think a lot of the choices they're making are good choices.
And that leaves Chris. What do you think, Chris?
I agree. I do like the simplicity of it, the elegance, the cleanliness. Cleaning up attacks of opportunity. I think it's fantastic. I am a little bit, we had talked about before, concerned about the critical hits and failures. I always feel that it's all of that kind of stuff, critical hits or critical successes and critical failures, in general, disadvantage the players more because they are much more affected and have to live with the consequences of being critically hit, as opposed to the enemy that is you critically hit it and it overkills it, and then so what, and it's gone. So, but we'll see. I mean, I definitely need to play it more, and I'm looking forward to playing at higher levels.
And then finally, I'm looking at it a little differently. I look at it as a GM. I mean, I do look at it as a player, but I'm looking at the mechanical system of how it's built. And one of the things I like a lot is it looks like they built this obviously from the ground up. And there's a lot of tools here. There's a big framework for when they add new classes or new abilities, that it's all here. Like, oh, you have new abilities. Okay, those are powers. You have new spells. Okay, we have 4 main spell schools now, and it goes in one of those 4 schools. So they don't, add a like a 8th school like they did in Pathfinder first, and then never add spells to that school ever again. By having 4 schools, hopefully all the expansions, they'll always make sure, okay, we have 10 new spells, 10 for each school, so none of them get left behind. And like the item system, it's very regimented. Everything is regimented. Everything has a system to it, but it doesn't go to the point of 4E, which I think a lot of people worried about, because 4E did the same thing, and 4E went overboard, and it became so hard to play 4E that everything was regimented into a system. This is regimented into a system, but still has massive flexibility. Again, we have to play it more, but from a general point of view, I really like what I see so far. And with that, I guess we'll wrap up our initial review, and then maybe we'll do a follow-up after we play a little bit more and try some higher level characters and see what we think of the game system after that. Hey everyone, Steve here. So thanks for listening to our review. Once again, we plan on doing another review after we have a few more sessions under our belt, as well as after we get to play some of the higher level characters and get to try these characters out with more spells and abilities and feats and so forth. In addition, we are playing through many of the adventures, so do check back if you want to actually listen and watch us play. You heard us talking about the game sessions we were in. We actually did this review right after we finished playing a few sessions, so a lot of the game mechanics and fights were fresh in our head. That's why we kept referring back to them, as well as the individual builds and the characters that each person is playing. So if you actually want to see us in action, do check back on the website at rollforcombat.com, as well as the Discord channel, as well as our Facebook and Twitter feed, and you'll be notified whenever we post new episodes of us actually playing through the Pathfinder Playtest. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to write us. There's a forum on the Roll for Combat website, or just go to the Discord channel where we are there all the time at discord.rollforcombat.com. In addition, you can play both Starfinder and Pathfinder Playtest games on our Discord channel. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to Roll for Combat, a Starfinder actual play podcast. If you have a question or comment for the show, please visit us at rollforcombat.com or drop us a line at contact@rollforcombat.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Discord, and other social media platforms. You've been listening to Roll for Combat. Until next week, always remember that your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries.